Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. So I'm continuing on doing a variety of different videos. So the new videos I'll be looking at are guilty pleasures. So they're films that I really like, that may not be great and may not be very successful, but I do like aspects of them. There's something about these films that I keep returning to and really enjoy that other people may not. So today I'll be looking at Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That came out in 1992, was written by Joss Whedon, who would later go on and do the TV series. Was directed by Fran Rebel Kuzi and starred Christy Swanson, Luke Perry, Donald Sutherland, Rutger Hauer and Paul Rubin, and a variety of others. And the film really focuses on Buffy, this time played by Christy Swanson. She's a young 16-year-old girl who sort of doesn't really care too much about anything. The only focus in her life is really her boyfriend, her cheerleading and shopping, and she doesn't really aspire to much else. She just likes to live that sort of simple life. But all that changes when she meets Merrick, Donald Sutherland's character, who explains to her that she comes from a long line of vampire hunters and she's now the chosen one, and he is there to train her to be ultimately take on and destroy these vampires. She thinks he's crazy. She doesn't know what he's going on about, and she has that great line of, does Elvis talk to you? Do you see spots? Like, he's sort of crazy. I kind of like that aspect to it. But it's really about how she, he takes her to a graveyard and she is ultimately set upon by two vampires and she is able to kill them fairly easily. And then begins this training sequence and these training with her and Merrick and how she sort of becomes the warrior she wants to be, I guess. And there's a great, training montage that you have in these sort of films. Luke Perry appears as well. He plays Pike, which I think in a lot of ways, Joss Whedon took that character, changed his name to Spike, made him a vampire in the TV series and sort of made him a love interest as well. And that's sort of what I got from that particular character. And it's really an interesting dynamic between them two. And I really like Donald Sutherland's performance here. Him and Rutger Hauer, just feels like, why would they do a film like this? It seems so left of center, so unique and different and odd and screwball comedy in a lot of ways, that you wouldn't think it'd be something that interests either of them. But they're both great in it. I think Merrick's a very interesting character. I like the fact he's sort of set in his ways a little bit, and I sort of like that they're sort of making fun of these particular characters in a lot of ways. Like, he's making fun of the fact he's this watcher training, vampire hunters, and I kind of like that. And then Rutger Hauer's character, who sort of plays the ultimate villain in the picture, he just feels like he's having way too much fun. He just feels like an actor. It's surprising he's in something like this, but he's really great. He's really sort of intimidating and funny and quirky and strange, playing the lead vampire, Lothos. And he's sort of the master coming back. But I really like his performance, and it just feels interesting to see him in a role like this. And Paul Rubin, who's best known for playing Pee Wee Herman, plays a really funny role. He feels like he's a character that's out of a different film. He's very funny, he's very over the top. There's a sequence where he loses his arm, and then he says to Buffy, he goes, "We've been around for centuries. We can do anything we want to." She says, "Okay then, clap." And I just like those little one-line zingers, these kind of funny elements to the film, with those little humorous moments. Is this a brilliant film? No, not by any means. It's silly, it's screwball, it's a little over the top. It's sort of a teen romantic comedy with vampires thrown in. This is a film that pissed Joss Whedon off ultimately. He wrote it, but it wasn't the movie he wanted to make, so he went off and made the TV series and became quite successful at that, and really gave Sarah Michelle Gellar threw into the limelight in a lot of ways. What they did really well with that series is they took the events of what happened in this film and then they skipped to her going to a different town, and I really liked that. It was like she's saying she was involved in this, and there was vampires, and there's school burnt down, and now she's in another place, and she still has that knowledge, and then we're introduced to Giles, who ultimately trains her like Merrick did in the film. And I really liked that from a film that wasn't great, Joss Whedon was able to become quite successful in the TV arena with this particular concept. Paul Rubin, and he has this really great death scene where I think in the script she just stabs him, he's meant to die, and in this framed shot, it's on her face, and he's fallen down. He just gets back up and he starts going, and he starts looking at her and walking around, and then he goes over to the stairs and he starts kicking the wall, and it takes him forever to die. All improvised, of course, but it adds a sort of quirky and strange element to it. It's very, very funny. There's also early performances by Hilary Swank, Ben Affleck, who appears in one random scene as a basketball player that he's sort of uncredited for, and David Arquette, who plays sort of Pike's friend who becomes a vampire in a really strange and unique way. I think all of them do a really solid job. But what I really like about this film is the humour. I like the sort of romantic comedy element to it that's a little different. I like the chemistry between Kristy Swanson and Luke Perry and the relationship and bond that forms between them. I like the relationship she has with Donald Sutherland's character, Merrick. But for me, my favourite part of this film, what I enjoy most, is the arc of Buffy. She starts as this sort of typical teen girl who only cares about shopping and a boyfriend and cheerleading. And she sort of evolves and becomes this great sort of warrior in a way. And she sort of, the things she cared about, she doesn't care too much about as the film goes on. She's only focused on what she has to do. And when she feels she's let Merrick down and he ultimately dies, she sort of lets go of that and tries to return to the former life that she had. But she can't, because she's not that person anymore. She's not the same person she was before all of this happened. And it's kind of interesting to see that arc and how she becomes the strong and powerful vampire slayer that we all wanted to be. And I really love the arc and evolution of the character. Even in this small, simple, slapsticky, sort of silly comedy, Joss Whedon's able to craft a really fascinating and interesting female lead and have an evolution for her, have an arc. And I really loved that. I thought that was really fantastic. And that was my favourite part of this film. But it's just a fun ride overall. It's entertaining, it's funny, it's got some great scenes in it. I really love the third act of the film, where she's sort of bought this white dress and she goes to the dance and no one wants to dance with her and they all think she's a bit freaky-ish. And then Luke Perry's character appears and they have a moment where they dance and then the vampires attack and then she sort of has to become this warrior. She tears her dress and he gives her a leather jacket. So she looks really cool and she goes out and she just kicks ass ultimately. And I really love this element. It's really fantastically done and I like what they're able to create here. But overall, it's a silly and over-the-top film that isn't going to be for everyone. But if you like to see the precursor to Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series, this is definitely worth a watch. And this is why it's one of my guilty pleasures. And the next film we'll be looking at is Harley Davidson the Marlboro Man with Mickey Rourke and Don Johnson. And I hope you enjoy these sort of videos because I'm just trying to do something different on the channel. Anyway, that's all from me today. If you enjoyed this video, please hit subscribe down the bottom. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.